So today we're going to be covering how to build rock gardens in Minecraft. So the first thing we need to do is we need to pick our palette. So really any kind of stone works for this, but my personal preference is to start off with something basic. So we got our deep slate, our andesite, and our diorite, just to get some variation. So you can do whatever you choose with it though. I mean, there's things you can do like one of the other good variations you can do is granite. Granite adds a good color contrast. So if we look at right here, like especially if you mix it with diorite side by side, they actually look really good for contrast. But let's get started on it. So what you want to do is you want to get your basic shape area, like designate certain areas for it. You're gonna basically place a couple things down. Just no real order right now. We're just gonna basically get the idea for where things are. Once we get these basic things set down, we can actually sort of put shape to it later, but we just want to get the basic feel for it. Now, the thing for rock gardens is some styles do more organic, some do more like all over the place. It all depends on how you want to do it. So what we're actually going to do is actually going to bring some of it up and over like this because it adds some sort of variation. And you'll see what we're doing in a bit is actually this one is going to be some sort of support. You want to make things look like there's actual form to it. So by doing this, we now have to make something to support this one. So naturally, we have our big tower right there. Right now, it's only getting the sort of line work down. Once you have the idea of how things are going to lay, you can work things together a bit more. So then we can switch to some granite, but actually we don't want to do the granite just yet, do we? We're going to do a towering thing. We would obviously want to add some more things just to sort of build up to the big structure, like so. These are obviously going to have more shape to them in a bit. Now, another thing you can do is put some more rounded out ones like this. And obviously what we would do with this is basically bring it inward until we basically have a large stone. But this is what one of those more circular things you can do. You don't have to do a perfect circle. Very few stones in the world are perfectly circular. But if you did want to do this, you could just bring it around like so. And you have ourselves this. Now, another thing you can do is you can open up MS Paint. It'll actually allow you to make some more geometric designs if you want to do that. But we're going to bring out this and actually just repeat the process again. And when I was saying about stacking, we can do that here too. What we would do is the MS Paint thing I was saying earlier. Well, I already have it memorized, but what you would do is you take MS Paint, draw a circle. Usually you would hold shift and then click, drag that. But what we're going to do actually here is we're going to draw ourselves a basic circle. So we have right about here. I'm going to leave it hollow so you can see what I'm doing. And then right there, bring that around. And what we'll be able to do with this circle is actually shape it out a bit. Now we have that shape. We actually can bring it around and do something sort of like this. By following the shape that we set out, we now can make something somewhat more circular without having a perfect circle that we have to be limited to. And there's that side. We bring it around the same process over to the other side, and we just basically just go with whatever the shape is, just try and fill in the gap until you have at least 2 or 3 layers outward. Doesn't matter how many, I usually like to go 3, go as many as 4 usually, depending on the size. And there you have another sort of shape to that rock right there. And then what we would do for the same thing is bring over to these ones. So you see how these are a bit like this. So you're actually going to only flesh out the top and the bottom for these ones. So as you bring it out, you would bring it up a little bit on there and just continue working upward until you have something that looks somewhat like this. And you have one rock, and then you can do the same thing with this one. And just it adds a little sort of standing stones. You can also decorate these like with vines, like if you took these mangrove leaves right here, just put them all climbing up the side of this. This adds a bit of variation as well. So one of the things I always like to do is add variation because it makes things feel more tied together. Now, if we're going to use the leaves, we're going to bring it around till we sort of bring it over to this way. And we now have a bit more shape to it yet again. Always looks better when you bring the shape together. But we obviously want to bring the whole thing together, so we're not going to stop there. And we're going to bring this one. Now, it's okay if it breaks into the path, because that does make it feel like what path isn't like an afterthought. You want it to think like everything was planned out in advance. So there we go. We got our first stone in this structure, and then we're obviously going to branch this one out and sort of flesh it out as well. Now, for something like this, you actually want to make it bulkier towards the top. It's leaning on top of this, or towards the bottom. It's your pick, but I usually like to do it towards the top because it feels more supported. Because the thing is basically holding it together and all that. But look at that. It's starting to get shaped together, but you're going to do the same sort of thing that I was doing earlier with this, and basically just continue to flesh it out. Place it all in a random pattern. Just let your mind tell you what looks like it needs to be filled in. If it doesn't look like it needs to be filled in, it probably doesn't. And also, if it looks too bulky, it probably is too bulky. But just let your mind go where you think it should go. And eventually, you should potentially end up with a unique design. And there's a reason I don't tell you how many blocks you need, all of that stuff right off the bat, because the point of me showing you this sort of style is that you end up with your own design, but I'm just teaching you tricks and all that on how to do it. And as any builder, I'm learning alongside you guys too. I might try something in a video and realize, hey, I like that, and I didn't mean to do it. But there you go. We got this one that's sort of balanced off of there. Now, as I was saying with the leaves earlier, you can decorate things after the fact. So let's say we want to actually make this sort of overgrown. So this one, it would actually be great for some hanging vines. You could even add a pathway at the top of it. Not very safe, but hey, it's your world. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to hang some of these leaves downward. And this allows us to create the idea that there's actually vines, they're overgrown, and it just looks pretty nice. And of course, it's almost nighttime in the game. We'll see how that affects things. But we may have to adjust that a bit. But there we go. We have a nice little hanging thing coming down from there. Now, lastly, we're going to need to go around and take our little andesite, because we did have a third times tone in the palette. What we're going to do is bring this on around. Let's do a bit more of a different style. So let's make this more like a thing where it's just basic flat stones, right? So if we went to flat stones, we can actually mix in some slabs into here. But we're not going to do that just yet. We want to probably get our basic feelers out first and design where we want things to lay. And yeah, there we go. It's starting to look a little better. If you notice, I'm not actually removing any of the other things that I had there, this other andesite, because it does add a bit of contrast. Because stone isn't always just like one type of thing. And yes, it does look a bit blocky right now, but that's because I'm just placing basic shapes everywhere until basically I fill the area I want filled. And there we go. We are nearly finished with the area. Now that we have that, we can simply go ahead and layer in the next layer. So by going in a second time, go ahead and wrap that around, bring in another shape. And suddenly you have a bit more of the appearance that things are stacked. Then we're going to bring in a third one and layer it on top of this, just barely hanging on. So we're going to actually bring it on here. And there we go. This one is suddenly just out towards the pathway itself. And you have that sort of feel. We want to do it again. Just wrap it around. Just repeat the process as many times as you want. And you will basically end up with a unique design. Now, another thing we need to acknowledge, though, is we need to have our basic, like, foliage again. So if we're going to do this, then what we naturally need to do is do another thing. Now, we don't want to have all the same type of foliage everywhere. So I really like these little blossoms that came with the Cherry Grove update. So we're actually going to scatter these on, not too much, not too little either. Just more around the white areas. These with the diorite and all that. Because it adds a little contrast because it's the lighter colors. Now we can also take the leaf litter, same as we did with the desert, and put this all over around here. Man, that looks good. I do love how they added these like ground cover things in the recent update. Now, if we want to do this, we obviously want to have another thing to go with it, like some sort of tree. So actually, the best thing I would go with for here is a cypress tree. The reason being that it's not too difficult to build, and it also doesn't take up too much of the picture. Allows you to still have the same appearance without it being overwhelming. But another way you could do it is also just create some sort of flowering bush. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to create a little bush that we can throw in here. Just something really basic. See, that's not really too hard to make at all. And we just place another somewhere around here. And it basically looks overgrown without looking too messy, you know what I'm saying? But there we go. Just randomly place leaves around it again. And there we have another one. Just bring it back around. Place some more over here. And obviously, since we have this other type of leaf ready to go, we're just going to pretty much place it randomly now until you got a sort of edge feel to it. Make it feel like it's not too barren. Because this right here does look a bit plain right now. So, if you have any areas that don't look finished, foliage is a great way to break that up. Then, of course, we have this back here. So what in the world we're going to put back here? Larger trees. The same type of blocks is a great solution all the time. We can just flesh out the trunks a bit because these are larger trees. We want them to have a bit more shape to them. And there we go. Just bring it up a little bit more. And we are ready to start placing the leaves in. And when you look at that, it's almost done. We just want to make sure that we also taper this off properly. If you taper it off too abruptly, it will look funky. And there we go. But yeah, if there's anything you guys want to see me build, or things you want to get some tips on, or anything like that, I'm always open to suggestions because sometimes you lose all your ideas for a week or something like that, and oftentimes it's better to get some advice from someone. Yeah, what do you guys think of this? Let me know in the comments. But yeah, this is what we've been doing. There's a lot of other ways you could take this, but if you guys liked anything from this video, just feel free to let me know. And thanks for watching. I will see you next time.